Boiled eggs in the morning. What really happens to your brain? Have you ever eaten eggs for breakfast and wondered what they are actually doing inside your body? Most people think they already know the answer. Protein, a little fat, some vitamins, maybe cholesterol. But what if the most interesting part of the egg isn't happening in your muscles or your stomach at all? What if one of the most important nutrients in the yolk is being used by your brain every single day to build cell membranes and produce a chemical messenger involved in memory, attention, learning, and muscle control? That nutrient is called choline, and once you understand what choline does, you may never look at the humble egg yolk the same way again. But there's an important twist to this story. You may have heard claims that eating 2 boiled eggs immediately after waking, specifically on an empty stomach, creates a special 60-minute window when your brain suddenly becomes sharper. That sounds exciting. It also sounds scientific. But when we look closely at the actual research, the story is much more interesting than that. There is evidence that choline is important for brain function. There is evidence that egg yolk is a rich source of choline. And there is preliminary human research suggesting that increasing egg yolk choline intake may improve certain aspects of memory in older adults. But there is not good evidence that eating eggs at one exact time of day gives you a magical cognitive boost that cannot happen at lunch or dinner. So today we're going to separate the fascinating biology from the internet hype. I'll show you what really happens after you eat eggs in the morning, what choline does once it enters your bloodstream, why your brain needs acetylcholine, what scientists actually know about eggs and memory, why the yolk may be more important than the egg white, and why the way you build the rest of your breakfast may matter just as much as the egg itself. Let's start with the yolk, because this is where the story really begins. An egg is much more than a protein source. One large egg provides about 6 grams of protein and a collection of vitamins, minerals, fats, and other bioactive compounds. The yolk is especially important because it contains most of the egg's choline. Choline is an essential nutrient. That means your body needs it to function properly, but the amount your body can make on its own isn't enough to meet all of your needs. Your brain uses choline for several important jobs. One of the best known is the production of acetylcholine. And acetylcholine is not some obscure chemical you've never heard of. It is one of the major neurotransmitters in the nervous system. Think about the last time you remembered someone's name, the last time you learned a new skill, the last time you concentrated long enough to solve a difficult problem, the last time your brain told your hand exactly how to pick up a cup without you consciously planning every movement. All of those activities depend on communication between nerve cells, and neurotransmitters help carry those messages. Inside your brain are billions of neurons. They don't physically touch one another. Instead, there are microscopic spaces between them called synapses. When one neuron needs to communicate with another, chemical messengers are released into that tiny space. One of those messengers is acetylcholine. This is one reason choline has attracted so much interest from researchers studying memory and healthy cognitive aging. But here's an important distinction. Choline is a building block. It is not a switch that you flip and suddenly become smarter. Eating more choline doesn't mean your brain simply creates unlimited amounts of acetylcholine. Your nervous system is regulated by a complicated network involving enzymes, transport systems, receptors, metabolism, and the specific demands being placed on different brain regions. That's why nutrition science is rarely as simple as eat this food and get this result. The real question is whether getting enough of a nutrient helps your body perform the functions it was designed to perform. For choline, the answer is clearly yes. Your body uses choline to make acetylcholine. It also uses choline to make phosphatidylcholine, one of the major phospholipids in cell membranes. And this is where the story becomes even more fascinating. Your brain is surrounded by cell membranes. Every neuron has one. Every supporting cell has one. These membranes help control what enters and leaves the cell. They help maintain the environment neurons need to send electrical signals. And phosphatidylcholine is one of the important structural components used to maintain them. So when you eat an egg yolk, you are not simply providing your body with a nutrient for one single chemical reaction. You're providing raw materials involved in several aspects of normal nervous system biology. Now let's talk about what happens when you actually eat the egg. You chew it, it reaches your stomach, protein digestion begins. As the food moves into the small intestine, enzymes continue breaking down proteins, fats, and phospholipids. The nutrients are absorbed and transported through the body. Some of the choline enters the bloodstream in free form. Other choline-containing compounds are metabolized through different pathways. And this is where one of the biggest misconceptions about eggs appears. People sometimes imagine that choline from breakfast travels directly from your stomach to your brain like a straight line. It doesn't. The body is much more complicated. The nutrient is absorbed, metabolized, transported, and regulated before it becomes available to tissues. Your liver plays an important role. Your bloodstream carries nutrients throughout the body. And your brain is protected by the blood-brain barrier, a highly selective system that controls movement of many substances between the circulation and brain tissue. Choline can cross into the brain through transport mechanisms, but the presence of choline in your blood does not mean every extra molecule automatically becomes acetylcholine. Your brain decides where resources are needed, and that brings us to another important question. Does eating eggs actually improve memory? This is where we need to move away from dramatic internet stories and look at human studies. One randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled study looked at adults between 60 and 80 years old without dementia. Participants received either an egg yolk choline preparation providing 300 milligrams of choline per day or a placebo for 12 weeks. The researchers measured several cognitive outcomes. The results were interesting. The group receiving egg yolk choline showed greater improvements in certain measures of verbal memory compared with the placebo group. Plasma-free choline also increased. That is meaningful because it gives us actual human intervention data rather than simply relying on animal research or observational associations. But notice something very important. The study did not prove that eating 2 boiled eggs every morning immediately improves memory. It did not prove that an empty stomach creates a special cognitive window. It did not show that breakfast timing is superior to lunch. And it did not prove that eggs prevent dementia. That's a very important distinction. The study lasted 12 weeks. It involved 41 participants in the final analysis, and although certain verbal memory outcomes improved, not every cognitive measure improved. So the scientifically honest message is not 2 eggs unlock your brain. The honest message is, choline is important for normal brain function, egg yolk is a rich source of choline, and a small randomized trial found that daily egg yolk choline supplementation improved certain verbal memory measures in older adults over 12 weeks. That's fascinating enough without exaggerating it. And there's something else you should know. A broader review of the research on eggs and cognition found that the evidence is mixed. Some observational studies have associated moderate egg consumption with better cognitive outcomes. Other studies have found no significant association. Researchers have also pointed out that whole egg intervention studies are relatively limited. That means we should be interested, but not overconfident. And personally, I think that's more exciting than a miracle claim. Because real science gives you something stronger than a promise. It gives you a reason to understand how your body works. Now let's return to the morning. Because even though there isn't convincing evidence that an empty stomach gives eggs some unique brain-enhancing effect, eating eggs for breakfast can still make physiological sense for many people. Why? Because breakfast is an opportunity to build a meal around protein rather than refined carbohydrates. Imagine starting your morning with a sugary pastry and sweetened drink. You may get a rapid burst of energy, but the meal may provide relatively little protein or fiber. Compare that with eggs paired with vegetables, whole grains, or fruit. Now you're building a much more balanced meal. The egg provides protein and micronutrients. The vegetables provide fiber and plant compounds. The fruit provides vitamins, minerals, and additional fiber. And the whole meal can be much more satisfying. That matters because what you eat for breakfast influences what happens later. A highly refined breakfast can make it easier to stay hungry and continue snacking. A protein-rich breakfast can help increase fullness, and that can make healthy eating easier across the entire day. But there is another issue we need to discuss. The egg itself is not the only thing on the plate. How are you cooking it? Are you boiling it, poaching it, scrambling it with a small amount of oil, or frying it alongside bacon, sausage, buttered toast, hash browns, and a giant sugary coffee? Those are completely different meals. And when researchers study eggs and heart health, this is one reason the results can become confusing. The food eaten alongside the egg matters. The overall dietary pattern matters. The amount of saturated fat matters. Your individual risk factors matter, and your baseline cholesterol matters. Eggs contain dietary cholesterol. One large egg contains around 200 milligrams of cholesterol, although the exact amount varies. For most healthy people, dietary cholesterol has a smaller effect on blood LDL cholesterol than saturated and trans fats. But smaller effect does not mean no effect, and it certainly doesn't mean unlimited egg consumption is appropriate for everyone. The American Heart Association has emphasized that individual context matters, particularly for people with dyslipidemia, diabetes, or other cardiovascular risk factors. Mayo Clinic similarly notes that many healthy adults can include eggs as part of a balanced diet, while overall dietary pattern remains important. So if you already have high LDL cholesterol, diabetes, established cardiovascular disease, or another condition affecting your dietary needs, don't assume that a social media rule about 4 or 5 eggs a day applies to you. Get your numbers checked, know your LDL, know your blood pressure, know whether diabetes or kidney disease is present. That is far more useful than blindly following a food trend. Now let's return to the brain. Because choline isn't the only reason eggs are nutritionally interesting. Eggs also provide vitamin B12. They contain riboflavin, selenium, iodine, vitamin A, And depending on the hen's diet, some eggs contain omega-3 fatty acids. The yolk also contains lutein and zeaxanthin. These carotenoids accumulate in the retina and have been studied extensively for their role in eye health. In other words, an egg is a small package carrying nutrients that support more than one organ system. But here's an important lesson. Your brain doesn't need one miracle food. It needs a consistent supply of nutrients, and those nutrients come from a diet. Eggs can contribute, but so can fish, beans, leafy greens, nuts, fruit, whole grains, soy foods, and a huge variety of other foods. That is why I would never build a brain health strategy around eggs alone. Instead, I would build breakfast around a combination. Maybe 2 eggs with vegetables, a small portion of whole grain toast, a piece of fruit, water or unsweetened tea. Now you've got protein, fiber, micronutrients, and a variety of plant compounds. That's much closer to the way nutrition actually works. And there's another reason this matters as we age: muscle. When people think about healthy aging, they often focus on memory. But maintaining muscle is just as important for independence. As we get older, losing muscle strength can make everyday tasks harder. Standing up from a chair, climbing stairs, carrying groceries, recovering from an illness, and eggs provide high-quality protein containing all 9 essential amino acids. That doesn't mean eggs are a muscle-building miracle. Resistance exercise is still essential. Total protein intake matters, and the rest of the diet matters. But a nutrient-dense protein source at breakfast can be a practical way to support your daily nutrition. Now let's talk about another idea from the original viral claim that deserves correction. The claim that an overnight fast leaves your brain depleted of choline and that eating eggs immediately restores it is too simplistic. Your brain doesn't wake up in a nutrient-starved emergency state. Your body has sophisticated systems for maintaining nutrient availability. You don't need to panic about eating within 15 minutes of opening your eyes. You don't need to drink 2 glasses of water and race to the kitchen. And you don't need to avoid food afterward for 45 minutes because choline supposedly disappears if you eat something else. There is no strong clinical evidence supporting such a rigid protocol. That doesn't mean timing is completely irrelevant to nutrition. Meal timing can influence metabolism, appetite, blood glucose, and circadian biology, but those effects are much more complicated than a single 60-minute egg window. So if you enjoy eggs in the morning, eat them because they're nutritious and convenient, not because you think you have exactly 60 minutes to activate your brain. And if you prefer eggs at lunch, that's fine. If you prefer them at dinner, that's fine too. The important question is whether eggs fit into your overall dietary pattern and health needs. Now imagine 2 people. Person number 1 eats 2 boiled eggs with spinach, tomatoes, berries, and whole grain toast. Person number 2 eats 2 eggs fried in butter with bacon, sausage, refined white bread, and a sugary drink. The number of eggs is the same, but the metabolic environment is completely different. The first meal is nutrient-dense and balanced. The second may be much higher in saturated fat, sodium, and refined carbohydrates. That's why the real lesson isn't eggs are good. The real lesson is build the meal around health. And this is where the morning routine can become powerful. Not because eggs magically transform the brain, but because a good breakfast can establish the direction of your entire day. Start with protein, add fiber, choose minimally processed foods, drink water or an unsweetened beverage, then move. Walk, exercise, get outside. Expose yourself to natural morning light and challenge your brain. Read, write, learn, talk to people, solve problems. Because your brain doesn't stay healthy simply because you eat one nutrient. It stays healthy because you keep using it. Now, if you're specifically interested in choline, eggs are one option. But there are others: soybeans, fish, meat, dairy products, certain vegetables, and legumes can all contribute to dietary choline. That means someone who doesn't eat eggs can still build a diet that supplies choline. And someone who does eat eggs shouldn't assume that more is automatically better. Nutrients have appropriate ranges. More isn't always better. That's especially important with supplements. A food source and a concentrated supplement are not the same thing. And supplements can interact with medications or become excessive when combined with other fortified foods or products. So don't start taking high-dose choline supplements because a viral video told you that your brain needs more. Start with food. Start with your overall diet. And if you have a medical condition or a specific nutritional concern, discuss it with your healthcare professional. So, what actually happens when you eat boiled eggs in the morning? Your digestive system breaks them down, their protein provides essential amino acids, their yolks provide choline and phospholipids. Your body absorbs those nutrients and distributes them according to its metabolic needs. Choline can contribute to the production of acetylcholine. Phosphatidylcholine contributes to cell membranes. Protein helps maintain muscle. Lutein and zeaxanthin support eye health. And the eggs can become part of a satisfying, nutrient-dense breakfast. That's already an impressive story. You don't need to add a fake laboratory experiment to make it interesting. You don't need to claim that your memory will jump 18%. You don't need to promise that your brain will enter a special state at exactly 7 o'clock in the morning. The real biology is fascinating enough. And there is one more thing I want you to remember. If you're eating eggs because you want to protect your brain as you age, don't stop at the egg. Think bigger. Control your blood pressure. Manage your blood sugar. Stay physically active. Get adequate sleep. Don't smoke. Maintain social connections. Keep learning. And eat a diet filled with vegetables, fruit, whole grains, healthy fats, fish or other quality protein sources, and minimally processed foods. Those habits have much stronger evidence behind them as a foundation for healthy aging than any specific breakfast ritual. So tomorrow morning, if you enjoy eggs, boil them, poach them, scramble them with vegetables, build a balanced meal around them, eat the yolk if it fits your personal health needs, and then go live your life. Take the walk, learn something new, call someone you love, challenge your brain, because the goal isn't to become obsessed with one molecule. The goal is to create a body and brain that have the support they need year after year. And maybe that's the most important lesson from this entire story. Your brain doesn't need magic. It needs maintenance, it needs movement, it needs sleep, it needs stimulation, and yes, it needs nutrients. Choline is one of those nutrients. Eggs are one of the foods that can provide it. But the real power comes from the pattern. One healthy breakfast, one walk, one good night's sleep, one nutritious meal, one conversation, one new thing learned. Repeated over years. Those small choices are what build healthy aging. So the next time someone tells you that 2 boiled eggs on an empty stomach will unlock your brain for exactly 60 minutes, remember the real science. The egg is nutritious. The yolk contains valuable choline. Your brain uses choline to help make acetylcholine. Egg-Yolk choline has shown promising effects on certain memory outcomes in a small randomized trial. But the exact timing ritual is not established science, and that's okay, because you don't need a miracle window. You need habits you can actually sustain. Take care of your brain, take care of your heart, take care of your muscles, and give your body the kind of nutrition it can use, not because a viral video promised you a shortcut, but because your health is worth something much more valuable.